Hello everybody, welcome to this session, this revision session that Venerable Charles is going to answer our questions and your questions. And so, thanks to his kindness to take his time and to take time out of his practice, he's leading the newness at the moment. So, no, we haven't stopped him from napping, don't worry. Thank you, Charles, for accepting our request. I have two questions which are related to the course that Geshe Loden is giving us at the moment. And then there'll be time for personal requests. So you can ask questions, people which are present here or via Zoom. You cannot ask questions via Facebook. It can only be in the Zoom chat that you can ask questions. And we'll answer them as they come along. The first questions, so there's two of them, so you can select and you can answer in the way that you want to. The first question is, what would be your advice in order to be able to apply the practice, meditation on bodhicitta? So with the two methods, with the 6-point cause and effect and exchange in self and other, to put it into practice in our everyday. So we have these different steps that we're supposed to generate, but how do we apply them when we face difficulties in our everyday lives? So if you could give us some advice in relation to that. And then the second point is in relation to the bodhisattva vows. So a few people have taken or would like to take those vows. So could you explain to what it represents, what it means? What does it mean for you to take the bodhisattva vows, and what does it imply in your level personal, and what are we actually committing ourselves to? Thank you, Charles, for answering our questions. Maybe we can start with refuge. With the intention to free all transmigratory beings forever, I take refuge in the Dharma and the Sangha, up until I obtain the heart of enlightenment is achieved with perseverance, initiated by wisdom and compassion, in the presence of all the Buddhas and for the benefit of all sentient beings. I generate the mind of bodhicitta. Feel the presence of Lama Chenrezig in front of you, or it can be in front of you or above the crown of your head. If you don't have the exact description in your mind, just feel the immensity, the vastness, the love and compassion which is unconditional, which is unified with transcendental wisdom. Imagine that you have numberless bodies which are equal to the atoms of the world, which are prostrated at the feet of Lama Chenrezig. That you are offering all the beauties, all the marvelous things of the universe, but also think that you are offering your body, speech and mind without any feeling of loss or attachment, in a total sense of offering yourself. You confess all your negativities, you reveal all these negativities, all the mistakes that we have accumulated since beginningless time in this life, and also in the ones from this life. Also the link of trust. There's no need to try and hide anything. We always want to hide things, the kind of negative, the things which smell bad of ourselves. So here we can reveal everything. Of course, with regret and remorse, that we've committed these and we've accumulated these mistakes and wrongdoings. At the same time, we generate this wish, the determination to not do these, to not commit them again. All beings, all the enlightened beings, which are accumulating only virtuous actions, positive ones, we rejoice of those actions, and we rejoice also all the positive acts accumulated by all sentient beings in all directions. Rejoicing, it places our mind in virtue. It's a simple way, it's the easiest way to generate this positive energy that we need so desperately to obtain enlightenment. We ask all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and especially the masters, our teachers, to guide us again and again, to teach us up until the end, up until all sentient beings have obtained enlightenment. It's not just a request that we're just paying lip service to, that we're really feeling. It's just like, for example, like we're drowning, we're not pretending to call somebody. We're calling for help from our guts. And we're currently drowning in the ocean of samsara. So it's this intensity that we're asking the teaching, as well as for the teacher to guide us throughout these teachings. And if there's if we've accumulated any, maybe in any shape or form of virtue or positive energy we accumulated in this life or today, throughout these thanks to these practices, then we offer it totally to this ideal of enlightenment. The enlightenment of all beings. In order to be able to actualize this potential of enlightenment, then how would it be possible to help sentient beings? Once we've done this prayer, this seven-limb prayer, we can make these requests from the depths of our heart, that we open ourselves up to the love and compassion and the wisdom of Lama Chenrezig, and to request him to be able to actualize all these qualities, all of the qualities of the path. And at the same time, we're conscious that our main obstacle is this double attitude of attachment to self, to me, I, that grasping, which is the root of all sufferings in samsara, of our wandering, of the wandering of all sentient beings. And almost simultaneously, this attitude of cherishing this I above everything else. So we ask Lama Chenrezig to free us from that, to purify us from these things. You can feel different flow, this nectar, which represents wisdom. It's almost as if there was this kind of, we become kind of crystallized and tense around this eye, and slowly through this blessing, something becomes kind of more soft and opens up. Something which was very tough and very hard, slowly becomes more soft, more open, more tender. And what comes out of this is our goodness, our fundamental goodness. We could call it Buddha nature, transcendental wisdom. And our power, our unlimited power to love. This presence of Lama Chenrezig is continuous, without any unwavering, no matter what you think, no matter what you do, no matter what you say. And it's up to us to activate it, the experience of that presence, of his very presence. The books and knowledge can give you some indications, but it's in our practice, in our perseverance, in our repeated practice, that there is something which happens, and it's in the order of being kind of imbuing and permeating our mind. Otherwise, our mind always remains the same, remains ordinary. So there's one thing I wanted to say before starting is do you remember this? Does this remind you of something? And the person who this kid which lies a lot, do you remember? So there you go. So Christian is talking about experience. So my experience is Pinocchio. I would have liked to do the ears, Mickey Mouse's ears, but it would have been a bit more difficult. What I'm trying to say, beyond kind of just the joke and this kind of sort of interlude, and the personal story which has no benefit whatsoever, what is important for us is that we do not stay at the level of the words, that we're not satisfied with mere words. Christian is saying, share your experience, and I have no experience to share. And that's just, and it's very sad, but that's the way it is. But for you, take this decision. The perspective of bodhicitta is inconceivable. All the Buddhas could speak about it for eons and eons, but they would not be able to express the depth of bodhicitta. So how could a poor Pinocchio, what would I be able to tell you about it? But what is important is you, in the depths of your heart, you think, you say to yourself, just to realize, or to think about the goodness of sentient beings, that becomes something which lives in my heart, which fills my heart. And therefore, when I see this cup with a drink inside, there's something which happens inside of me. There's something which, in the fact that continuously from dawn until night, from the moment we're born, we are born like a worm. This is what Lama says, and there's nothing. We are nothing. We're totally naked. And there is so many beings around us from this moment onwards, just up until now that you're listening to me and I'm speaking. There's so many numberless sentient beings which have given so much, given so much to us. Time, energy. So many beings who have suffered. Just for a cup of water, just for a sip of water. Imagine all these beings which have been involved, which have given their energy, their time, just for a mouthful of bread, for this house which protects us when it's cold in winter, when it's hot, or when from the rain. So many beings, so many beings. Not to just, you see, every time, every subject, the example that I was talking about when I was like drowning, this intensity of asking for help. So here we're asking Lama Chenrezig to be able to be filled from this experience of this goodness, of this continuous goodness that the beings, sentient beings have towards us. All these layers that we have. Trungpa Rinpoche, he talks about this kind of sensitive spot, which is this to be touched, this capacity to develop compassion for sentient beings, to have loving kindness attitude. And this sensitive spot is kind of like protected or sealed off by so many walls for the territory of the me, the I, so can be totally protect, and nobody can come into contact with. And that is the greatest obstacle to enlightenment. But just the words will not, they don't have the power to touch, to crack these walls which are so thick. The only thing is, it needs to come from the inside. Our internal experience, it's only through this internal experience that there can be the possibility of transformation. Therefore, when I was imitating Pinocchio, it's kind of like an invitation for you guys to not just stay at the level of the words. Don't just be satisfied with the words. Of course, we need the teachings, we need the words, which are kind of like a guide, sort of indications for us to know which way to go, like if we're taking the road, we're taking left, right, etc. and so forth. But in your heart, you need to feel somebody who is like drowning and he really needs a hand, he needs a rope to be able to get him out. And you need to feel that intensity. And you need to have this intensity of having this internal experience of the kindness of sentient beings. So when you do drink, then your drink has the taste of the goodness and the kindness of sentient beings. And when you eat even just one mouthful of food, you take your time. Of course it's difficult when you're working, even when you're not working, to do like a whole meal like that, but even at least just a few mouthfuls in your everyday life, you're determined to try and have this experience of the path, not to just know the path, to experience it here and now, to experience it within our minds. We have this capacity to actualize a capacity to actualize an experience. That's why we're talking about training the mind. We cannot just hope and wait for some type of experience without putting effort into it. And this is an essential criteria that you can, underline and highlight it in your little books. It requires these efforts, and at the same time. But apart from that, what is going to, enable us or encourage us to make such efforts? So first, we need to want to make such efforts, and what is going to push us to make, to have the wish to make such efforts? It's going to be a double comprehension of our situation, of our current situation, that in the prison, in the jail of the me, I, there is no hope. There is no hope whatsoever. Of course, ultimate, put aside, ultimate happiness. I'm talking about temporary happiness. There's no way to give meaning to our life. There is no hope in the me and the I to give meaning to our life. There's this direction of kind of self-healing in order to heal, at least to be a little bit more realistic, to try and participate in the world's healing. We have this capacity within us. Regardless of what the capacities are, it's up to us to not to limit them to just some kind of judgment, especially when we've received teachings, when we have the methods. This first comprehension of our situation, this understanding of our situation in the cycle since beginningless time, what it involves. We have experienced everything. From the top, from the peak of samsara, from the depths of the hells, we've experienced everything. And I still have not understood anything. That the path goes through freeing the being within us from this prison, which is terrifying, suffocating, without hope, from self-cherishing and from the grasping of the self. Compassion can establish itself in relation to this understanding. And then afterwards, it's like there is like an internal kind of outlook which is opening oneself up to others. His Holiness talks about that all sentient beings
les 6 royaumes,
from the 6 realms,
quand on dit
when we
sensibles,
talk about sentient,
ça veut dire qu'ils sont exactement
it means that they are exactly as sensitive as I am in relation to the experience of happiness and the suffering. There is no difference.
Et il continue.
And he continues to say,
Alors, par quel
so
privilège
what, through what
moi, je
privilege
devrais passer devant tous les autres?
should I go first in front of everybody else?
C'est quoi la raison?
What's the reason
On doit
behind
se
that?
poser la
We
question.
must ask ourselves this
C'est
question.
quoi la question valable,
What
la
is
question logique
the
pour dire que je peux passer
logical reason, which means I can go in front of everybody else for the obtainment of my own happiness, my own peace, to avoid suffering? What is the reason behind that? The valid reason.
Donc ces efforts,
So these efforts,
cette énergie
this
d'effort,
energy of putting effort,
c'est un chemin
because
qui
it's a
est pour la
particular
plupart
path for most of,
inhabituel.
kind of unusual, and we do not have a habit or not familiar with it.
Il est Christian au début me disait,
Christian was saying to
la
me,
question que je te posais, c'est
the question,
pourquoi c'est si difficile
why is it so difficult to realize bodhicitta?
Bien sûr que c'est
Of
difficile.
course, it's difficult to realize bodhicitta,
Mais en même temps,
but at the same time,
si on insiste trop
if we,
sur le fait que c'est difficile,
put too much emphasis on the fact that it's difficult, is that at the end we're going to become discouraged. Of course,
ça peut vraiment des fois surgir.
it can of course happen and occur in our mind, this type of discouragement, when we see, when I see to what extent I'm so stupid and selfish continuously. It can be discouraging, but at the same time,
c'est un aspect.
It is one side of the coin.
L'autre,
the other side
c'est que cette petite mouche,
is that this little fly here,
this
little sentient being,
avec l'entraînement,
with the training,
je peux essayer
I can
de
be able to feel
cet être,
that this being
il a pris ce corps,
has taken such a body. This is Lama which says this.
Ce corps de souffrance.
This body of suffering.
Il n'a pas pris ce corps.
He hasn't taken such a body
par choix.
By choice.
Tous ces êtres.
All these sentient beings,
qui ont pris des corps
which have taken these bodies of suffering.
C'est juste comme nous.
They're just exactly like us. They were looking for happiness. Through ignorance, they have created causes of suffering.
Et c'est sans choix, ils ont pris ce corps.
And without any choice, they have taken such a body, which is a body. Imagine,
les moustiques,
the body of a mosquito.
De les entendre,
just to hear them.
La quasi-totalité des gens,
pretty much, 99% of people want to destroy them.
Si nous, on avait un corps.
Imagine if we had such a body.
Ou les punaises.
Or stink bugs.
Ou les puces.
Or fleas.
Toutes ces formes
all these different shapes and forms of existence
ne font que de souffrir,
which are constantly suffering their whole lives.
C'est pas par choix.
It's not through the choice that they have, migrated in such a form. And Lama says, what can they do? So they can simply do nothing in this shape and this form. It's impossible. So if we have such an awareness, like I was talking about earlier on, this kind of foundation of total kind of equality and similarity between us and them. Of course, the shape and form is different, but the feeling of being is exactly the same. They do not want to suffer. Just like me, they want to be happy. Why is she attracted to sugar? Because she wants pleasure. Just like me. Exactly like me. So, sorry, I'm kind of, going a bit here, I'm a bit scattered here and there. You can sort of reorganize the thoughts. Also at the same time, there's this level of responsibility. There's this level of responsibility. If this being have no way to kind of free itself from its own suffering and to be able to create the causes to stop suffering, so regardless if I am imperfect, if I'm full of disturbing emotions, regardless, I have responsibility to be able to do something for that being. And at that moment, we're creating the cause, very particular causes in our mental continuum of this responsibility, the causes of enlightenment. And that is the kind of commitment of the Bodhisattva. That's their only reason to live, is to be able to alleviate the suffering of sentient beings, to bring them to happiness. So that's the first aspect of bodhicitta. The second aspect of bodhicitta, it is because of that I must realize enlightenment. Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche says, one without the other cannot give the result of the realization of bodhicitta. Therefore, we need to actualize these two aspects within ourselves. And all the situations, in all of the situations in every days of our lives, so they become opportunity to be able to actualize these two aspects. And what is the reason for the fly, which is just some kind of dust, speck of dust? It's going to shift to something which evokes something within me, and it makes this kind of responsibility emerge. What is the difference between in these two perceptions? It happens within my mind. It doesn't. It's happening from the side of the fly, which would be carrying some kind of like signs and saying this or that, and that's part of its suffering, is that it cannot clearly express its suffering and what it's enduring. So what this means is that we, or let's say we have a child, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a lover, a parent, they experience various difficulties. Naturally, we have this movement, and like His Holiness talks about this when he talks about loving kindness, we kind of get out of this. We talk about this kind of territory of the. We need to always kind of put everything nice and comfortable for this eye, the little cushions and everything. There's all this energy which is invested that we dedicate to me. Dilgo Khyentse, just like le Maître says, we enter the path of enlightenment when we will be capable to be continuously, spontaneously concerned about others in the same way that we are now in the present constantly focused and concerned about ourselves. And at the moment when we will be prepared and we will be able to ignore the me and the I, with the point where we'll be able to let that go, in the same way that currently we are ignoring others, without such an internal attitude, we cannot even hope to be able to set foot on the path of enlightenment. We can see the immensity of the work that we have to do. So from my side, it's I am constantly focused on myself, spontaneously, naturally focused on myself. And that's what we need to change. But we cannot change it by beating ourselves up, by thinking that we're bad, because that kind of cuts our inner energy of love, because we're in a different type of kind of energy.
on est dans une
we're in an
énergie
energy
de rejet.
of rejection,
Et l'esprit d'éveil
and the mind of
est
enlightenment
définitivement dans cette dimension
is in this dimension
d'ouverture.
of openness.
Le rejet, c'est
Rejection
comme une non-vie.
is kind of the absence of life,
Enfin, certains diraient natos, je sais pas quoi là. Une énergie de mort.
a kind of energy, a
De
death,
mort intérieure.
death energy, almost like an inner death energy.
Actualiser cette capacité.
So we need to actualize this capacity to express and to see the goodness of sentient beings around us.
Qu'est-ce qui va faire
Why
que l'indifférence que
that
j'ai
we go from kind of indifference for such a
à
being
cette sorte de
to
considération
from this consideration to this
C'est
creature,
parce
for
que
this
j'ai
creature?
actualisé
It means because
la
I've
bonté.
actualized
Parce
kindness.
que la bonté
Because
est passée
kindness
du
is
concept
gone
de la
shifted from
connaissance
concepts,
à
from knowledge
cette expérience.
to this experience.
Quelque chose qui est
It's something
sa santé, il en
His
parle,
Holiness
c'est
talks.
bouleversant.
He says it's totally
Comment les êtres, lui, il donne
baffling. And it flips the world upside down. He was saying a long time ago when His Holiness was in Tibet, at the rooftop of the Potala Palace, and they had little baby ducklings, and the babies was trying to fly away, but they're not very, how to say, agile, and they're falling over here and there. And I don't know if there was some crows or some type of big bird which was coming to eat the little ducklings. And so he was expressing the kindness, how the mother and the father, probably as well, they were standing in front of the little ducklings to protect them. And he said it's totally baffling, this attitude to give oneself up totally for others. Because there what's happening is that there's a sense of responsibility, that you are part of me.
Ça, c'est important. Tu es une partie.
You are a part of me, you are a section of me.
On en parlait très longtemps avec Christian.
We were talking about it quite a long time with Christian, with the poem of the 7th Dalai Lama, which kind of goes something like this. If you can correct me if I... My mothers, transmigratory me, which are wandering in the 6 realms, me, the child, they are part of my heart. They are part of my heart now, in the present. Now we all have within the depths of our heart, we have the kindness of all sentient beings which have looked after us since beginningless time. And this is written within us. There's nothing which is ever lost. It can never be lost. So how can I live differently? The only thing I can do is going back and developing the taste and the inner flavor and experience of this unconditional kindness which we've received from all sentient beings who have worked so hard, which have also accumulated so many non-virtuous actions for us, to feed us, to protect us. And this kindness at some point must kind of give us shivers. There are these two aspects. Lama says, without these two aspects, we cannot, we have no hope to realize bodhicitta. It's this kindness which kind of totally submerges us. And then there's the suffering. And within this poem, to continue within the poem, the 7th Dalai Lama says, and these infinite beings which are so kind, which countless times have alleviated all my sufferings and my torments, and they have brought me so many times joy and kindness, and all these sentient beings so kind and who've alleviated so much suffering are covered and stuck within the mists of ignorance and afflicted and suffering of karma and disturbing emotions, and they have no hope to be able to let go, to put down the burden of misery. So this must become totally unbearable for ourselves. It is unbearable. And at that moment, we are going to engage. And this commitment, why do bodhisattvas commit themselves like that? Because it's unbearable. If it's not unbearable, then we're not going to put any effort into anything, would we? But because we burn ourselves, it's unbearable. There is no question whether I should do something about it to heal to heal myself. That is the second perspective, is like I exchange myself with others. So that is a total mishmash here. You really have to reorganize what I'm telling you here. But when I'm talking about exchanging self and others, is that there's no difference between what I'm calling other and what I'm calling me, I. There is no difference whatsoever. There is a total equality. A perfect equality. And the second aspect, if there is a difference, imagine you are facing the ocean, and me, I am a drop. And the ocean is all these other droplets of water, sentient beings. Each droplet is one sentient being, which has given everything and which is suffering continuously. So there is a difference. Yes, there is a difference, that all sentient beings are numberless, inconceivable. So His Holiness says, because they're suffering, so that means that their suffering is more important than mine. Their happiness is more important than my happiness. Lama, when he talks about this kindness, he also says, continuously remember the kindness of all sentient beings and of their suffering. So these are this double, these two things which we need to fill our heart with. When we drink, when we eat, when we get dressed, when we have a wash, have a shower, when we go to bed. All of these things, where do they come from? Where do they all come from? They are simply, instead of to just see it as something that we deserve, it is up to us to cultivate within our mind, thank you, to cultivate the gratitude. And that word, try to cultivate that. The other day, I went on a scooter to do some shopping. I drive a little bit like a nutcase, but then I thought, oh no, that's not good. It's not very respectful towards other people. And then I was trying to, each car that I saw, I tried to think, oh, thank you. I was saying thank you. Not really asking myself. And at the moment, slowly, you create this habit to do something. So the same, similarly, just try constantly cultivate this inner thank you for everything. In whatever thing that you're involved with, the good ones, and even sometimes the difficulties. So this is in relation to how we can integrate bodhicitta in our everyday life. And Trungpa Rinpoche says we cannot integrate bodhicitta if we do not accept. We accept kind of criticisms. Accepting the goal, the essential goal, is that we are drowning, right? The reason why we're drowning is because of this importance of me, I. But if we just keep feeding the me, I in everyday life from morning until night, how can we hope to realize the essence of enlightenment, which is bodhicitta, which is great compassion, which is unconditional love, without letting go
du moi je
And removing this me,
doit
I,
se dépouiller.
we must remove,
Et parce que ça, c'est notre idéal.
get rid of this me, I.
Là,
And
c'est
this is
Pinocchio
an
qui vous parle, hein.
ideal.
Mais
Again, this is,
quand
again,
quelqu'un vient
Pinocchio's here speaking.
et qui me remet en
And
question,
something
qui
which,
me critique,
somebody who's criticizing me, who's
si
questioning
mon
me.
but,
If my goal
c'est de libérer mon
is to
esprit
free my
de
mind
ce poison
from this poison,
qu'est l'importance
which
du
is the
moi je.
importance of the me, I.
Alors, merci.
So thank you.
On peut dire merci
We can really say
à
thank
celui
you
qui nous
at
critique.
such a two people who are criticizing us.
Mais ça, c'est waouh.
But that is wow, huh?
On sait combien c'est difficile.
We know how difficult that is.
Mais Shantideva dit rien
Shantideva
n'est
says that
impossible
nothing is
avec
impossible
l'habitude.
without, habits
Mais aussi, il faut
and
avoir
training.
envie.
But also we need to
Mais
have
aussi,
the
il faut
will
avoir
and
ce
the wants
souhait
and
continuel.
this
C'est pour ça
constant
que quand,
wish.
quand
So
dans cet
this is
engagement
why
des
in this
bodhisattvas,
commitment of the
quand on dit
bodhisattvas, when we say
continuellement
to
qu'il n'y ait plus qu'une seule chose dans notre esprit,
so
c'est
there's
de libérer
continuously
les
within our
âmes,
mind
d'amener bonheur.
to
Et
free
pour
all
ça,
sentient beings and to
réaliser
bring them to the
l'éveil.
state of enlightenment. And in order to do that, I must realize
Et
enlightenment.
l'obstacle
And the
majeur,
main obstacle to enlightenment,
c'est moi je.
it's me, I.
Donc il faut se
So we
débarrasser
need to
de
get rid of this
l'importance
me, I, the importance
qui n'a rien à
attributed,
voir
given
avec
into the me, I, which has nothing to do with
notre nature profonde.
our real nature, our deep nature.
Donc, même si vous n'avez
Even
pas la possibilité
if you do not have the possibility to go to the ocean, to the seaside,
juste,
just
des fois, quand vous
sometimes
marchez
when
ici,
you're walking,
vous soulevez une
you
pierre,
lift
et
up
en
a
dessous,
stone and you can see there are so many bugs,
une fourmi,
there's so many ants,
d'êtres sensibles
so many sentient beings,
qui ont été
which have been
ma maman,
my
mon
mama,
papa,
my papa,
mon frère,
my brother,
ma sœur,
my sister,
mon amoureux,
my
mon
boyfriend,
amoureuse,
my
etc. Ils ont
girlfriend.
été ça.
They have been all of
Pas une
these,
seule fois, d'innombrables.
not just once, numberless times.
Cet être maintenant,
And this sentient
ok,
being
il
now,
subit cette situation
he's
karmique.
suffering such a situation. He's suffering and
Et
he's
puis,
experiencing this
quand vous
this
montez
karma.
à l'étage,
And when you go to the kind of the top
regardez
floor of the chateau, you can look down and you see, wow,
tout l'étendue que
the
votre
space,
regard peut
around
percevoir.
us, the whole landscape,
Ces êtres
all of these beings
qui souffrent
which are
comme
suffering,
ça et qui aucune chance de sortir.
which have no chance to get out.
Et puis imaginez que derrière
And just imagine
cette
that
perception
behind this
de votre
perception
regard,
of
de
you
votre
looking out upon this,
encore et encore,
that there's
et
more
encore,
and
et
more
encore.
and more and more. It expands beyond our eyesight.
Alors il y a quelque chose
So
au
there's
fond
something which happens in our depths which kind of cracks.
c'est l'importance du moi je.
Is this
Il
me,
peut pas
I?
être là à ce
It
moment.
can't be there at that moment. It can't
En
be
même temps,
present at the same
parce que
time.
vous avez
Because
cultivé
you're cultivating
vraiment au fond de votre
in a
cœur
sincere, in the depths of your heart.
je sais plus si c'est Shantideva
I'm not sure if it's Shantideva
qui dit
who says,
chaque être que tu rencontres,
each being that you meet,
peut-être Lama,
maybe it is Lama,
c'est pas-
but actually it's the same really.
Shantideva,
Shantideva, Lama, it's just the same really, fundamentally.
cette tête sensible
The
il
sentient
me donne
being, he's
petite mouche.
giving, for example, this little fly
donne
which you can't see, is
l'opportunité de
giving
sortir
me
de moi.
the experience,
De
the
sortir de
opportunity to
l'importance
get
de moi.
out of this importance of the
Donc,
me, of the
Quoi
I.
qu'il se passe,
So whatever
il
happens,
sera toujours la cause
it will
de mon
always
éveil.
be the cause of enlightenment.
Donc ça c'est la suprême bonté.
And this is
la
the
bonté
supreme kindness.
primaire, c'est ok.
So, general, your average kindness
Boire, manger,
is, drinking and all this
est
kind of,
inestimable.
which is, also has great value.
Mais chaque être,
But each
il donne
being,
cette
it gives you this
Si on peut
opportunity.
pratiquer,
If we can
si on peut
practice,
être maintenant assis ici,
if we
maintenant,
can be sitting here
le
right
coussin
now,
c'est la bonté,
the cushion
le
is the
stylo, c'est
kindness,
la
the pen
bonté,
is the kindness,
le papier,
the
c'est la
paper is the
bonté,
kindness,
les lunettes c'est la bonté,
the glasses
tout
are the
est la
kindness,
bonté.
everything is the kindness of sentient beings.
Donc de ressentir
But to feel
ce que dit Lama, c'est
what
que
Lama is talking about
je suis redevable.
is that I owe.
J'ai quelque chose que je dois te rendre.
I have something which I owe you. I need to give back to you.
Il dit, imaginez
he says, imagine
vos parents
your parents,
démunis,
which are totally,
dans le froid,
which have lost everything, hungry, cold outside. He says that's not exactly his example. I'm kind of exaggerating a little bit, but imagine yourself, you're inside, nice, comfortable, you have the fire, the music, so you cannot hear anybody shouting outside, your stomach is nice and full, you're nice and cozy.
Non, il dit, ça c'est pas suffisant.
He's like, that's not enough.
On doit faire plus que
We
ça.
must do more with our life, with our, our precious human existence. We must do a little bit more. We have to do more than that.
C'est pas l'idée
We can't.
de mettre une pression.
It's not the idea to put pressure on yourself, but the point
dans cet élan,
in this kind of energy of stretching out and leaping out, this leap of love, there's this freedom
pour nous,
for ourselves.
De cette, vous savez, c'est comme si
it's almost as if we were holding,
c'est pas vraiment mon expérience, mais
it's not really my experience.
Dans sa main et qu'on serre.
If you hold like a sea urchin in your hand, the more you hold it, the more you squeeze it, the more it's going to hurt. The more you say, me, I want happiness, me, I want this, me, I want this, you're kind of tightening your hand. And the other is always just a means.
Là, on laisse la place à quelque chose en nous qui est inestimable.
And when we shift our interest, we're able to have a totally different experience, and that's why we really owe others. So the other, regardless of their behavior, they are always the cause. If we make this choice at the from the beginning of is the cause for our enlightenment. And that, at some point, we cannot measure the kindness of sentient beings. So therefore, also, if we're cultivating a such state of mind, it protects us from anger, protects us from resentment, frustration, etc., because the other person does not recognize, the other person does not respect me, etc., and etc. So this is the stories of everyday life. How does bodhicitta become our best remedy for all suffering that we create for ourselves?
Juste cultiver ce merci.
To cultivate this thank you
dans chaque situation.
In each situation that we have.
Quand des fois vous sentez que
sometimes you might feel that within your heart it's kind of shutting down.
Donc remplacer
to replace it with the experience of closing down
par merci
with thank you, because there's another reality within us which is present since forever, and we know that we can see this reality when we have some experience of meditation, of the openness of letting go, this kind of inner peace. We know that there's an alternative reality than this constant, which is always thinking, trying to fill something, trying to fulfill its desires, which is basically always bringing upon. Here you're speaking to a specialist, which just brings constant insatisfaction and frustration. And just like Lama says, this attitude, such an attitude, and this is quite terrible, really. It steals our precious human rebirth. A precious human rebirth which carries the seed of enlightenment, and especially all of the kind of tools and all of the elements to be able to actualize the enlightenment. And we've dedicated to what? For pleasures? And that I can talk about because this is my experience. And that is pretty... we can't, let this happen to us. By this inner devil, this tyrant of self-cherishing. This doesn't mean that we're not allowed to be happy. That doesn't mean, but it means that everything that is going to be offered, from this me, I,
trucs.
It's kind of like these things, you know.
Les cacahuètes soufflées, là, super exhausteur de goût, là, tu sais, qu'on mange. Plus on en... Ben oui, évidemment, je le sais. Plus on en mange et plus on
These
veut en
kind of
manger.
crisps, the more you eat them, you know,
cette
you
histoire
want more and more and more of them.
trucs salés,
And
là.
these salty things, you know, that
On peut pas trouver...
you'll never find happiness
dans cette démarche.
in this kind of approach.
Dans le vœu de Bodhisattva,
In one of the Bodhisattva vows,
cette sorte d'exaltation.
there's this kind of...
Lama, il fait comme ça.
Lama has this,
Offrir.
does this gesture, offering in one's life, continuously offering,
Totalement.
totally,
impartialement,
without any bias,
à tous les êtres.
to all sentient beings, and each and every one of
Ça va
them.
tellement loin.
And it goes so far.
Lama, il dit,
Lama, he says, for example,
quand quelqu'un
when
te
someone
critique,
criticizes you,
se moque
or
de toi,
somebody
quand
makes
quelqu'un
fun of you,
te fait du
or
mal.
somebody harms you,
Toi, tu es là au fond de toi,
you're there, but
tu te dis
inside of you, you're thinking,
que chaque chose qui me fasse
so whatever that person is
devienne
may
la
be the
pour
cause
qu'il puisse
for
se libérer
that
de cette
person can free themselves from the suffering,
souffrance du moi.
the suffering of me, I.
Tout ce qui me
That
fait
everything that this person is
devienne la
doing is
cause
becomes the
pour qu'il
cause
puisse
for
obtenir tous les bonheurs
to
qu'il
be
souhaite.
to
Pas
obtain
seulement les
all
bonheurs
happiness, but
temporaires,
not
mais
just
les
temporary,
bonheurs
but ultimate happiness.
Et Lama, il dit,
And
c'est
Lama says
best psychologie.
that is the best psychology.
Il n'y a pas de meilleur.
There is nothing
Pas
better
besoin
than that.
d'aller voir un
You don't need to go see a therapist. Well, that's good. It will save some money.
Et c'est notre possibilité.
And this is our possibility.
Les situations
Because the
comme ça,
situations,
je pense qu'on n'en manque pas.
we have loads of
Et un peu plus loin,
situations
il dit,
to
quel que soit
see
le
this, and it
comportement
says,
de l'autre,
regardless of the attitude and behavior of the other,
au fond de nous,
and within us we can think,
c'est-à-dire il y a quelque chose, c'est comme s'il y a cette flamme
there is something within us like a little flame,
protégée
which is
par,
protected
par
by
cette attitude
this
du bodhisattva,
attitude of the
qui ne veut que du
Bodhisattva,
bien
which
aux êtres.
only wants to be beneficial
Parce
towards
qu'il
others,
actualisait
because
le mélange des deux, parce
it
qu'il y a
is
aussi la
actualizing
troisième
these
méthode,
two
c'est
things.
l'union des
The third method
causes à
is
effet dans le soi, c'est les 11 points de la maçon kappa.
there's the 11 points of Tsongkhapa as well.
Il est exactement comme moi, il veut du bonheur,
He's just like me. He wants to be happy. He doesn't want to suffer.
Il souffre continuellement. Alors, quel que soit
And
son comportement,
regardless of
que moi,
such a
je
person's
reste pour lui,
attitude,
comme une source
I must
vivante
remain a
et
source,
inépuisable
an
d'amour
unexhaustible source of compassion, of love, and peace for that person's heart. And this is also for ourselves. And this is the best way to protect ourselves.
Parce que
Because
chaque attitude,
because every attitude, every thought, which is imbued by the attitude of the importance of me, of the attachment to self, or self-cherishing, is so kind of, it permeates our being.
Que ça va toujours plus. C'est comme si on rajoute toujours plus.
We're always kind of adding to this. We're always like putting, wood on the fire, and we want more. And we kind of, we resent others as well. We think it's other people's fault.
Mais sans cause, il n'y a pas d'effet.
But without cause, there's no effect.
Ça veut dire que
So it means if the other person, behaves in such a way, it means that I've created the causes. So the only thing that we actually need to get rid of is not me, it's just for me, is this attitude which has brought me to put my happiness in front of other people's happiness and to act in an inconsiderate way, which means that now I'm suffering. At some point, there needs to be some kind of approach which stops, which severs, which, to stop creating more chaos, just like Trungpa Rinpoche says. And at the same time, we must really be ready to be able to give ourselves.
Lama
Tisha, he stayed 12 years with his master in Selimpa in order to be able to actualize, to materialize bodhicitta. Just practicing this constantly. Shekawa, he had the 7 points, didn't he, right? He was searching for the person who had written the 8 verses on training the mind so long as Kampa passed away. And he stayed 6 years next to his master who taught him only the points, offer the victory to others, accept the defeat. But us, we want to learn everything, you know, and we just want to realize it, enlightenment. It really demands a lot of effort, a lot of perseverance. The last teaching of Milarepa, you probably have heard, you know when he showed his bum. Was it to Gampapa, was it? He said, now I'm going to transmit the teaching, most important teaching. And he said, look at my butt. And his bum was covered with all these kind of blisters because I stayed so many years meditating. So we must create the causes, but at the same time, with the state of mind which rejoices, we cannot, get to the peak without a step. Every time we make a step, let's rejoice. And let's not just look at the peak and think, I'll never get there. We'll just become depressed and discouraged. Lama Yeshe used to say, even if not Superman, he didn't say exactly like this, but he said, you can help sentient beings. Even if your foot hurts, if the other person got his both legs broken, then you can actually help the person walking or moving around. You can carry the person or whatnot. And to not be discouraged. And one little thing that I found a little bit useful within my mind, which kind of looks like a septic tank. I mean, I won't describe a septic tank. You know what's in a septic tank. So when the negativity come into my mind, various projections or whatnot, to perceive, regardless of whatever the projection I might have, that if it's a part of the reality of the other, like a negativity or that my mind is focusing on, that is suffering for the other. If you can see if the person, this is an example, for example, I'm just saying like this, out of the blue. So the ordinary perception is like, it shuts down my heart, which loses any sense of responsibility or whatnot. If I see this kind of negativity as suffering, then Tonglen, I'm taking it upon myself. I take upon myself all the negativity that I see in the other person. And that frees me immediately. The negative state of mind is freed. If I see this negativity within myself, to be able to feel the negativity as a kind of aspect of suffering, I take it upon myself. And this is in the training of mind, this capacity to be able to use adversities in life as path to enlightenment. Trungpa Rinpoche, everything which is bad, I take. Everything which is good, I give. In one way, it's very simple, pretty straightforward. And that is also a training. Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, he says even just one food is, we go, yummy, yummy, to just automatically think, or internally we offer it. A beautiful sunset, we're walking around in the fields, something which smells nice. You see how we're totally like filled with it, with something which is good. Immediately it's ours. Any perception that we have, we think it's ours. We go in the water, it's really nice. It's me experiencing this. And you see why it's so difficult to realize bodhicitta, because it's the total opposite of that attitude. So it's like everything that immediately, something which is good, we want it, instead is to be able to offer it to all sentient beings, and then we can think of somebody who's close to us, for you to be happy, for you to be happy. We offer it. And when it starts to become a little bit difficult, when it's too hot, too cold, okay, we take it upon ourselves. For sentient beings do not experience such suffering. Same for the mind. When our mind is filled with this storm of negativities, then we can think, at least may all sentient beings be freed from that, because we know that it's suffering. To be in resentment, to be in jealousy, to be in experienced desire, we know that it's suffering. We have that experience. So either we identify and we feel bad about it, which is not really the best method, or we think it's other people's fault, or we think, okay, I'm going to take it upon myself, I accept it, this is difficult. But to be able to accept it, if we resist, it hurts, and it makes us very unskillful to be able to find, in order to find a solution. But if we, okay, I accept, I am as stupid, and this enables a particular energy to appear of enlightenment, a little energy of enlightenment, of humility. Okay, this is how it is. And from this openness, we think that through my experience, may all sentient beings I love first, may they not experience such things. When I think only about myself, we see there is suffering. When I'm angry, it's okay, it's part of this kind of continuous, this flow of karma. Remember this poem, this power of disturbing emotion. It's this burden that we carry in. We can't just, flick off, snap our fingers and make it disappear, but we can use it. We can actually use it. All of these poisons which are within us, we turn them. We transform them into medicine. For this experience to not experiencing what I am living through right now. And through my experience, may he be freed from that, or she be freed from that. Maybe start for the people which are close to you, and then open up the circle, widen it. And at the same time, like Lama is saying, this little drop and this ocean of all these droplets. The droplet is totally insignificant. And this, regardless of the martyrs, to His Holiness, the Gukense, whoever, they all say, even if you obtain nirvana, there's no big deal. It's just one person. It's one singular drop. It's enjoying itself, it's in nirvana. It's just a single drop. And if that only drop has so much suffering and so many problems, it's still just singular drop. It must not be understood in the way that you don't deserve to be happy, you deserve to suffer. It means that on the, in the kind of conventional and the relative sense, one singular drop in relation to the whole ocean.
La souffrance,
The
elle a
suffering
vraiment à voir
has
avec
a lot to do
notre incapacité
with
à
our lack
lâcher
of
sur moi.
this incapacity to let go of this
Sur
me I,
l'importance du moi.
of so much emphasis on the me I.
Plus ça devient
And the more it becomes
continuellement présent,
continuously
sur
present,
les sensations.
this sensation,
C'est exactement,
it's exactly like
si votre corps il est
our body
recouvert de plaies,
is covered in wounds.
juste
Even
ça,
just a little bit of wind,
ça fait mal.
it hurts.
Tout fait mal.
Everything hurts.
Ça vient pas du vent.
It's not the wind's
La
fault.
situation, ça vient de moi.
It's coming from me.
Parce qu'on n'est pas capable
Because we're not capable of letting go
sur l'importance.
of the importance of me, of
C'est
I,
d'essayer d'accueillir
and to be able to
autant
welcome
qu'on peut
as much as we can
l'autre avec,
other people
bienveillance.
with kindness and compassion.
Bon, il y a une petite question, excusez-moi.
Is there a question?
Oui, en fait, Charles, d'accord, mais l'esprit humain, là, il est arrivé
The
à un
human
niveau
mind has attained at a
où
certain
il a
level
réussi à réifier,
where we've
à rendre
verified,
réel quelque chose qui va à l'inverse, c'est-à-dire maintenant, on est
we
arrivé
have
à dire
obtained, gotten to a level we've
le
privatized
bénéfice,
the
c'est-à-dire le bénéfice,
benefit,
tout ce qu'on peut tirer
everything that we can
de la
get
nature,
from nature,
de l'exploitation
from
du travail.
exploiting
On
people,
arrive à le
from
privatiser,
we privatize it,
l'amener à soi,
we bring it to
alors
ourselves,
que tout le reste, toute
when the rest,
la
all
souffrance
of the
qui est
suffering,
induite,
which is
elle,
caused,
par contre,
that one,
on le divise,
we
on
divide,
le socialise, on le donne à l'autre.
we give it to others.
En fait, c'est comment ça s'appelle, le dogme
And
néolibéral
this
de
is
la société dans laquelle
neoliberalism,
on vit.
it's kind of dogma that we live in.
À
Where we
l'extérieur,
are
on sort,
outside,
on va faire une retraite,
we go do a
on va
retreat,
se mettre tranquillement, qu'on sort du
we
travail.
leave our
D'un
work,
coup, on respire.
we breathe a little bit.
Mais par contre,
But
quand on a
when
fini
we-
la retraite
We finish the
et
retreat
qu'on repart
and we go back
dans la vie
in our ordinary
dans la vie,
life.
pratique, là,
At that
on se
point,
retrouve, fait pas étouffé, mais dans la
we're
situation
kind
de la
of
personne qui
suffocated.
se noie.
You
qui
talked
crie.
about the person who is drowning and who's
Là,
shouting.
c'est criant, tout le monde crie.
Everybody is shouting out there.
Et la question,
And your question
c'est, qu'est-ce
is,
que tu fais avec ça?
what do you do with that? Is that what your question is?
Mais justement, là, actuellement, on
At the
vit
moment,
dans...
we're
Je
living,
comprends que
I
on
understand
puisse,
that we can,
d'un point de vue
from the point of view of
individuel, au niveau spirituel,
individual,
arriver à
spiritual,
dire,
to be able to
oui,
get to the same.
effectivement, c'est
Yes,
comme ça.
this is the case.
Par contre,
But
dans la réalité
in the reality,
conventionnelle,
in conventional reality,
où on vit, en fait, c'est complètement autrement.
things exist in a
Et en
total
fait,
different way.
c'est vrai, c'est un peu pollué par
It's
une
polluted
émotion.
by emotions,
C'est
but
moi la peur, disons-le.
the
Je me dis,
fear,
qui va gagner?
who's going to win?
Les uns,
The
la
one
multitude.
or
Parce
the
qu'actuellement, la
multitude?
multitude,
Because the many,
le cas général, c'est l'autre côté. C'est le fait que on profite,
we are enjoying basically,
on utilise
we use one another,
et les dégâts, c'est
and
pour tout le monde.
the consequences
Tu vois, ton père,
are for everybody. Trungpa Rinpoche, you see, he talks about this kind of subtle, this soft spot,
notre capacité à
this capacity to be able to feel,
de l'amour bienveillant,
love and compassion,
à recevoir.
to receive such a love and compassion.
Et il dit,
And he says,
même le pire
even the
des
worst
terroristes,
of
des
the
dictateurs
terrorists
ont
or
ce
the
sens.
dictators have such a soft spot.
Donc c'est notre perception
So it has to do with our
du
perception
monde,
of the world,
de l'autre,
of
de nous-mêmes.
others, of ourselves.
Souvent,
In
la
general,
référence que
the
l'on a,
reference is
c'est négatif.
is
c'est
negative,
sans espoir.
is no hope in a way.
Et il y a plein de choses qui pourraient nous
And
donner
there's
raison.
lots of things which could make us to believe that we're right.
Si tu ne veux pas
But
te couper
if you don't want to
de
cut
source
away,
d'amour,
if you don't want to cut yourself from your source
qui est ta
of
réalité,
love, which
mais
is your
aussi qui
reality,
est la
which
réalité
is
de Dieu,
the reality of
d'une
others,
manière ou d'une
it-
autre, continue à
you must
essayer
continue to
de
try and
percevoir
perceiving
cette bonté
this
fondamentale
kindness, this fundamental
par rapport
kindness,
à son comportement.
regardless of their behavior.
Et toi,
And you,
tes pratiques,
your practice,
ton engagement,
your commitment,
les bodhisattvas, tu sais,
for the
quand ils nous
bodhisattvas, you
voient,
see, when they see us,
ils pourraient aussi se
they
décourager.
could also,
En
become a
voyant,
bit, discouraged to see all these human beings who are constantly,
et pourtant, ils continuent.
destroying themselves, but they're constantly manifesting because they
Peut-être
give,
le mot n'est pas
the word is probably not
approprié, mais
appropriate,
cette sorte
but
d'espoir,
they have hope,
cette sorte de perception
this kind of perception that there is goodness in the
C'est pour ça
others.
que tu te lèves le matin.
And this is
C'est pour
why
ça
you
que
get
tu
up in the
pratiques.
morning,
C'est
this is
pour
why
ça
you
que tu
practice,
manges, que
this
tu
is why
bois,
you eat, you
que tu te
drink,
laves, que tu
because
vas
you
travailler.
wash, because you go
C'est
and work.
justement ça, cet
It's
engagement,
because
cette
of that
cette
commitment of the
perception,
Bodhisattva,
cette
because you
perception
never lose this
de la
perception
bonté
of the
fondamentale.
kindness, this fundamental
Et
kindness of others.
ton regard,
And your
ton
outlook,
comportement,
your behavior,
ton interaction
your
avec
interaction with the
à
others,
un moment
at
donné
one
ou à un
point
autre,
or
va
another,
pouvoir
will be able
réveiller
to
quelque chose en lui.
wake something, touch the other
Il y a
person.
tellement d'histoires
There's
de
so
ces
many
êtres
stories
d'êtres saints
of
qui
these
ont
holy
été
beings
attaqués,
which have been
ou,
attacked,
je dirais, vraiment maltraités,
or really
tu sais.
badly treated.
Mais par la force,
But by the power,
bien sûr que nous, on n'en est pas
of
encore
course,
là.
we haven't reached that point.
On est des apprentis.
We're, we're
De garder
learners.
en tout cas cet entraînement.
We're trying to keep in mind this training.
Par la force
But
de
by
la
the
compassion,
power of their compassion,
ils n'ont pas quelque part
they have not,
catalogué,
like,
cristallisé
crystallize
dans une
the others
réalité
in a
négative,
negative
dire que l'autre
reality
n'est pas capable
and
d'autre
say
chose.
that he's not capable of something else.
Mais, et comme Gandhi,
And just like Gandhi said,
disait, c'est moi je suis prêt à souffrir
I am prepared to
pour,
suffer
pour mon aspiration,
for my aspiration,
pour mon engagement.
for my commitment.
Mais je ne serai jamais
But I'm
prêt
not
à
pressed.
souffrir qui que ce
I'm
soit.
not ready to make anybody else suffer for my convictions, for my values. And he says at one point,
cette sorte de force
it's this power, this strength
toi tu as en toi
that you have it within you
de ces valeurs
of these
que
values
tu essaies
that you are
au mieux
trying
que tu
the
peux
best you can
à faire vivre
to
en
make
toi.
these
quotidien.
live within you.
Il y a quelque chose qui se passe
And
chez
there's
l'autre,
something which is
parce
happening
que
in the other
l'autre
person
porte la même
because the other person is also
réalité.
carrying the same
Il est
reality.
juste peut-être
Maybe,
un peu plus recouvert
and it
que
might
la
be a
tienne.
little bit more hidden than
Cette
yours.
personne n'a pas
And then maybe that
les
person
moyens que
might
toi,
not
tu as,
have the tools
c'est-à-dire
and the methods that you have,
l'enseignement, la
such
pratique.
as, the teachings,
Donc,
the practice,
tu vois, de
etc.
sortir
To be able to
de cette
get
sorte
out
de,
of this
de spirale
spiral
négative
of
où
negativity,
tu perçois
of you
que le
perceive
négatif, ou l'autre
only the
pense
negativity,
négatif,
and the other person acts
que
negatively,
de la souffrance
and there's
qui peut
just
sortir de
suffering
ça.
which is coming out of such a situation. So equally for yourself and for the other.
Un
And of
chemin
course, it's a
qui est
path
encore,
which is,
mais c'est voilà, c'est ça
but
l'entraînement
that is the training,
aussi. C'est de pas
It's
perdre
to not
confiance
lose hope
que la nature
that the
fondamentale
nature,
de
the
tout
fundamental
être,
nature
c'est
of all beings
l'amour,
is loving,
cette bonté fondamentale,
this
ce point
fundamental
sensible,
goodness, this
cette
soft point,
capacité
this soft,
à s'ouvrir.
to be able to open up.
Il y a tellement
There's so
d'exemples.
many examples,
Souvent, l'exemple que je donne,
The general
c'est
example I give
un
is
des assistants, je sais pas,
an assistant.
avec Kubler-Ross, tu sais, travaillait dans un service,
He was
un
working-
médecin, chef d'un service
A doctor was working
de phase finale de cancer.
of people who had terminal cancer.
Tous ces patients,
All of his patients.
ce gars-là, il était
This
infect.
doctor was horrible.
Kubler-Ross, à un moment donné, elle fait une réunion et dit, mais il y a bien quelqu'un qui l'aime un petit peu quand même.
There's some.
Personne ne lève le doigt.
They have a meeting and they say there must be somebody which likes this guy. The guy, nobody could stand this person.
Utiliser son pouvoir, etc. À un moment donné, il y a une
At
infirmière
one point, there was a nurse which came along,
qui va le voir
which went to see
et
him
puis qui lui dit,
and said to
mais
him,
Waouh, pour vous, ça doit être
So it
difficile
must be difficult for you
de voir tous vos patients
to
mourir.
see all your patients die,
Tous, au final.
because they're all in
Voilà.
terminal
Les
cancer,
médecins sont là pour
the terminal sort of terminal stage.
guérir les gens.
So you cannot really
Et là,
heal people. And at that
il se met à
point,
pleurer.
he started to cry. The
Là,
doctor, at that point, he
quelqu'un
started to
avait
cry
reconnu
because somebody had noticed,
dans sa souffrance.
had recognized him in his
Pas
suffering.
comme le mec
Not just a
infect.
guy who's unbearable.
Là, c'est la première
That's the
perception.
first perception.
Donc c'est ça qu'on doit essayer de faire. C'est
That's what we need to try and do, is to go beyond that.
première perception.
That we have the first
Et de-
perception and to be like,
Ce regard
and to
intérieur.
look, have this
Que tu cultives
internal, insight
à travers ta pratique.
that you cultivate through this form of practice.
Et allez.
We need to stop Charles. There's Gisela, which is coming.
Tu veux bien faire une dédicace?
Allez.
Can you do a dedication, please? I'm sorry, yeah?
On a juste 10 minutes.
We just have 10 minutes before Gisela comes back.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Merci énormément. Au nom de tout le monde.
Hein?
Au nom de tout le monde, merci.
Thank you,
Merci
thank
à
you,
toi.
thank you from everybody.
Tu
On
m'as
behalf
empêché
of
de faire ma sieste.
you prevented me from
Je te
having my
remercie,
nap. I thank you, Christian.
Arrête.
Que,
Merci.
que tous les êtres puissent,
May all sentient
quelle que
beings,
soit
regardless of
leur forme,
their shape, or
qu'ils puissent
may their form, may they
dédier leur vie
be able
à
to
ce qui est
dedicate their
le plus
light,
essentiel.
which is their life, to what is most essential within all of us,
Mais ils ne peuvent pas
which
le
they
faire,
cannot do it
comme des aveugles qui
just
marchent
like
tout droit
a
vers un
blind
précipice.
person walking
Ils ne
straight
peuvent pas
to the side of a cliff.
trouver
They
le
cannot
chemin
find the path
de la paix, de la
of
liberté,
peace, of
de la
liberation, of internal peace.
Ce sont tous
All of
mes
these,
mères
all
bienveillantes
these beings are my kind mothers, my children,
qui encore et encore
which you have
sont,
kind so numberless times again and
Non.
again.
comme dit la
So, like Lama says,
ce qui doit être réalisé,
what
c'est que
we need to realize
vie
is
et
that
mon
my
corps puissent
life
être
and my
utilisés
body can
par-
be used by others.
qu'il n'y ait rien d'autre
That there is
que-
nothing
que-
else
que cette
wi-
attitude-là.
apart from that attitude within us.
Encore et
Again
encore
and again,
penser
to
toujours
think
et
again
toujours
and
au
again,
fond du cœur
and within the depths of our
que ce
heart,
que l'on fait,
I
tout ce
think
qu'on
everything
dit,
we do, everything we say, everything we think
c'est pour soulager la
is to be able to alleviate the suffering of others,
et c'est pour les amener
and is to be able to
à ce
bring them to a
bonheur
state
temporaire.
of happiness, not just temporary,
Savoir
but
que
ultimate as well.
la-
To know that Lama says also,
la meilleure prière,
the best prayer is,
je suis ton serviteur,
I am yours,
je suis là pour toi.
I'm here for you, I'm serving you.
Mon corps et ma vie,
My body and my life,
comme l'engagement
just like the
auprès
commitment
de Bodhisattva,
the Bodhisattva vows,
est totalement
it's
dédié
total,
pour faire continuellement
continuously
pour la vie.
offering ourselves to sentient beings.
Et cela sans
And that,
aucune
without any
conscience
of this
d'un
state of
moi
mind of a me,
indépendant,
which exists in an independent,
d'une action et de l'autre comme existant en soi, séparé.
this idea that we
indépendant.
exist separately, or if there's an action which exists separately,
Que tout
in a
ça,
sense, in
c'est,
a permanent way,
le jeu
then
de
this is
la production
this
de
is just the game, the appearance of dependent arising.
qu'il n'y a pas un moi qui donne et un autre. qui
There is
reçoit.
just a me which is giving and somebody who is
Lama
receiving.
Yeshe, c'est
Lama
juste
Yeshe.
un passage,
Lama Yeshe used to say it's just
comme
a
un
kind of
arc-en-ciel.
a passage, something which just happens, like a rainbow. We can let it go.
Merci.